So I'm terrible at video games. I'm putting it out there. Like my speed was Frogger. That was it. And the frog would go along the highway and all you had to do is move the joystick front going vroom, vroom, and I still would get him schmucked by traffic. Yeah, terrible.
Not surprising.
I'm the opposite. I love playing video games. You know, during my downtime, lots of video games on my phone, from Candy Crush to... I know I'm not a sweet person, but something just attracts me to Candy Crush.
Do you eat the candies in that game? I've never understood it.
No, I just crush it. That's my mentality. I don't like sweet stuff, so I'm crushing. That's my philosophy of that game.
Did you just call my lack of skills at video games depressing?
It sounds on brand. No, I said it just seems like, no, I said it just seems like it's not surprising.
I don't even know what to say to that.
I just don't, you don't give off gamer vibes.
You? Gamer?
Yeah, I like to game, but I'm also cheap, so I play free online tower defense games, and my friends make fun of me. So, yeah.
I don't even know what that
I'll be like,
means.
if I can't go to an event, they'll make fun. They'll text like, "Oh, I guess you got towers to defend." It's like you build little towers along this like track, and then zombies go down the track, and you go like pew 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 pew, and then if the zombies get past, then you lose.
Okay, I may not be good at playing the games, but I can sure do an interview about a video game, and that's coming up on today's episode of This Is Manitoba. So a local creator here in Manitoba made a video game, and this one explores some really unique themes. Themes of disability, themes of chronic illness through this sci-fi fantasy world. So imagine a hospital stretcher in the middle of a field of flowers, and you've got to get up and find your way to actual medical help. With a lot of obstacles along the way. So we're going to hear more about that. Also on This Is Manitoba, we're going to take you to a real live hospital bedside. And we're going to find out and explore what the meaning of music is at the end of one's life through a personal story with a Metis artist who found himself playing bedside for Justice Murray Sinclair in his final days. The thing is, at first he didn't know who he was. It's quite a story. But let's begin with the video games, shall we? So, as I mentioned, a local artist created a pretty cool game. Well, your radio is not malfunctioning. Next on the show, let me take you inside a new locally created video game. Imagine you wake up in a hospital bed. You're staring up at a starry night sky. The hospital, though, has disappeared. Your doctors are nowhere to be found, and you need to find care. That's what players can experience through something called plants, properties, equipment.
In front of me again. Quack, quack, quack.
So we'll just fade this away here. But what we're listening to is music and, of course, a voiceover there from the game that I'm describing. That's one of the songs that was specifically created for Plants, Properties, Equipment, the name of the game. It is set, as you can hear kind of there probably, in a surreal sci-fi world. But what it explores is real-world themes like disability and chronic illness. A.O. Roberts is a multidisciplinary artist and the creator of this game. A.O. lives with a chronic illness themselves, and they joined us this morning by phone. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for being with us. So can you describe, like I've seen the images myself, and people watching on YouTube this morning will see some of the photos you've shared, but can you describe physically what this world looks like inside the game?
Sure, yeah. It's kind of a lush environment that is definitely on another planet. There's other planets hanging in the sky that are unfamiliar and looming large. But it still looks a lot like Earth, except for the plants are a lot bigger, and there's a grassland area covered with huge monoliths that you can jump around on and explore. There's a grotto area that's like a cave with hot springs that's full of objects that this character that moves you through the world keeps collecting, and they're kind of just objects that you collect as a person with a disability or a chronic illness, or that people give you. So it may be books on disability, or it may be flowers, or get well soon cards, or teddy bears, and they're all kind of conglomerated in there. And the place that you wake up that you were just mentioning is an alpine meadow. So they're all environments that are kind of places that when I was thinking of making the game that gave me a sense of awe or comfort. So I kind of wanted to mix this this quest that is somewhat discomforting with places that give you a serene feeling or a feeling of awe.
I think you succeeded there. The image of, as you described, the medical stretcher in the middle of this beautiful meadow of flowers is, as you said, at once peaceful and then stressful because it's so, not supposed to be there, so to speak, I guess. The premise itself, your doctors aren't there. You need to find care. As you describe, you're traveling through and looking for these tools to help you. How long is the experience of playing the game? And ultimately, how do you know when it's done? Like, what's the end goal?
It probably could take you anywhere from, if you're an experienced gamer that kind of knows there's some like conventional clues that you can go along with. Or if you're new to games, it could take you anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes or maybe an hour. It's kind of a combination of what's traditionally called a walking simulator and open world. So you could just spend a lot of time walking around in there and jumping around on things. And there's an area, the grotto that I mentioned earlier, is an area in which a lot of all the soundtrack exists within, and you can click on objects and they'll take you to a video that has captions and audio descriptions too, so people who are visually impaired can hear the music, and people who are deaf or hard of hearing can read the captions. So that was kind of a big priority in making the game too, to make it accessible. And then the game is over by you move through some grasslands, the grotto, and then you end up in an excavation pit in the middle of a cedar forest. And a cedar forest to me is one of the more mystical, calming areas. And there you make a choice, and that's the end of the game.
I won't ask you about the choice. We'll intrigue people to play the game. But I want to ask you a couple of things about the real meaning of this. Let's start with sound, because it's a big part of the game, and we heard some of it. What can you tell us about who created the soundtrack for this?
Sure, yeah. I guess when I was making the game, I really wanted to reach out to people internationally. I'm a sound artist and an experimental musician, and there's not really there's a big community of people doing that here, but there's not a big community of people within the disability community doing that here. So when you kind of exist in a small niche genre, you have to reach out to find your people. And so I reached out all around the world to people doing kind of weirdo noise, experimental music that also are disabled or have a chronic illness. And I asked them if they want to be in conversation with other people and have this. The grotto area is kind of like it's like a show. We were all part of a show, but it exists virtually, So
Love that.
They're on the bill, and you can go check it out, or you can just be in the grotto and leave. It's really up to you how much you want to listen.
I know that AO, you have shared that you have a connective tissue disorder that took years to get a diagnosis. How are aspects of your own personal experience included in the game? As we mentioned, disability, chronic illness, and accessibility are all explored.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. I guess I really want to use my personal experience when I make artwork and draw on it. And when you have a disability, it's almost impossible not to because it takes up so much of your time. And also, I'm really interested in the body and, systems of care that we have in the world and politics too. So it was a way in for me to kind of apply this.
I'm Alexis.
Hi, I'm Sophie.
And we're all from St. James, and this is Manitoba.
Well, the next thing up on the pod, actually, I heard you have some experience with, Corey, which is unusual because, we're going to be talking about being at someone's bedside at the end of their life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a few years back, my Oma died. She was at the end of her life. She had the honor of dying at home, and we knew she had maybe a day or two left. So my parents said, okay, kind of all had our time slots to come by and say our goodbyes. She couldn't speak. And I didn't really know what to do. So my wife and I, we brought a guitar.
You went to music.
Yeah. I don't know what to do, right, in those moments, because if she can't speak, we could speak to her, but I don't know what I would say.
What'd you play?
Hymns. She's a Mennonite lady, grew up in Ukraine, made her way here, and she's deeply religious, and so we just sang a bunch of hymns to her, and it was neat because she can't talk, but you can still see her smile, and you could tell it meant something. And both of us were just in tears the whole time. It was definitely not quality, but it meant something to all of us. So
I think at that point it's not so much about the music. No. It's about the meaning, and it's about the connection. And And it does set us up to lean into the next thing on the podcast because a local musician found himself playing at St. Boniface Hospital, and didn't realize he was playing for someone really quite special.
And the cats in the cradle and the silver spoon, little boy blue and the man on the moon. When you're coming home, Dad, I don't know when, but we'll get together then. You know we'll have a good time then.
That's, of course, Cats in the Cradle by Harry Chapin. But it is a song that Metis musician Quinton Poitras played a lot this summer. He plays with Artists in Healthcare Manitoba. It's a program that brings live arts to patients in their hospital bed. Over the summer, Poitras was playing music to those staying at St. Boniface Hospital, and he realized that one of his favorite clients was, well, I'm going to let him tell you. He's on Zoom to tell us more. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
So we will, by the way, play more of your with your music in a moment as well. But when it comes to this cover of Cats in the Cradle, who were you playing to?
Well, I picked up the song from Murray Sinclair.
So you, when you started playing for the late Justice Murray Sinclair, who, of course, thousands of people were at the memorial over the weekend, including the Prime Minister of this country. I understand when you started playing for him in the hospital, you didn't really realize who he was. Is that right?
Yeah. Indigenous Health gives me like maybe a dozen names every time I go in. And so when I saw the name Murray Sinclair, at first I had no idea who he was. And this is what it was like for maybe 3 weeks of me knowing him. So that's like 6 visits. And that's when his son was there. And his son, Nigan, told me everything that his father did, or at least a very brief synopsis of it.
What was your reaction when you found out the significance of Murray Sinclair and that you'd spent this time with him, which must just be charged with all kinds of emotions, I imagine.
Well, when Nigan had told me, and like what his dad had done, I just kind of said, I'm not going to treat you any differently. But admittedly, our conversations did change because, we were just able to talk about a little bit more things, a little bit more openly. So as soon as I knew he was a senator, we started to talk about things like politics.
You can share what you want to. These are personal conversations, so I won't. I'll ask you questions, and we'll get it if you say, I'm going to keep that one for me and Murray. But when you first met him, before you realized and you were playing the music, what kind of music did he like, and what were some of those moments like?
Yeah, so when I first went in, he was very, very surprised, for me walking in with my poncho and my hat and my guitar. And he's like, what are you doing here? What's going on? He's like, is this just for me? And I said, yeah, absolutely, man. And, I always kind of ask, what kind of music do you enjoy? And he really loved blues guitar and country music. So it was really easy. I could go in and I play him some stuff. I played him like 16 Tons.
Oh yeah.
And Country Roads. And then we would just chat about music, just mostly blues and country guitar, what we liked and what we grew up listening to.
And when you connected with him later, and you realized that, I know there you are as a Métis musician and an artist, and you're with this man who gave so much to our understanding of relationships in this country. What's a highlight you could share about some of your political discussion with him?
Yeah, well, I asked him about. I said, how do you we have our election coming up. How do you decide? How do you pick your man? How do you vote? Like, how do you look through all the shit or something? I had asked him. And he said, don't just look at the parties um, policies. He said that's the party show. He said, look at the individual, because the individual that you're picking for, um, you got to look at his history or her history and look at what they've done in their life, and then decide if that's something that you want to, if that's the person that you want to put your vote in for. So I'll always remember that one. Vote over character, not over policy.
Thanks for sharing that with us. I think a lot of us feel like somehow we're like now you've allowed us to be a fly in the wall of a special moment, and hearing Justice Sinclair's words and advice one more time. How often were you there, Quinton? Like, were you there daily playing? You mentioned that you were there for weeks, so I'm just curious how often you were spending time with him.
Yeah, I saw him twice a week.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed as though every visit got a little bit longer.
Artists in Healthcare Manitoba, what sounds like a very special program. You alluded to the fact that you get hired by Indigenous Health, you said, and you get paired with patients. How long have you been working in this program?
I guess it's almost been a year now.
What's most rewarding to you in all of the different visits that you have with patients at such critical points in their life?
Oh yeah, I mean it's really, really heavy. It's really, really wild. Like I never expected music to take me on this journey where I'm making such close connections with people in very, very, fragile times in their lives. But I love getting to collect all these stories from folks and all these songs, because every new song that I learn for somebody, every new cover, every new story that I hear is just it's in use for the next one. I don't learn the cover and then forget it. I get to carry that with me forever. And so it's just another piece of collection.
I know that this exchange with Justice Murray Sinclair that you had over spending time with him, you alluded to talking music, talking politics, but I understand it got a little bit personal, that you even credit him with shaping some of your views of the world as a young Métis man. How so?
Well, a friend of mine had got me his book, and so we chatted a little bit about that, and a lot of times he'd say, the story's from my book, and he'd tell me a funny story or something. But he was telling me about how he went to Europe and how many people there were asking him about his culture, about his heritage, and he didn't really know much. And yeah, I can really relate with that. I'm Métis. My grandma spoke Michif, but she never ever talked about it. It's she didn't go to exactly a residential school, but she was taught that she was dirty or something, and that her name was bad, and that her language was bad. And we're only finding out about this stuff now, and my grandma's gone. And it sucks, it really sucks to not know about these kind of things. So hearing that from such a established character in the community, made me want to continue seeking out answers.
Yeah.
And continue learning about my culture.
What an amazing exchange. What was he like in the last few weeks of his life?
He was incredible, actually. Always smiling, always. Every time I come in, he'd be like, "Oh, Quinton," and he'd smile and he'd be like, "What do you have for me today?" And it was very, very simple. I didn't have to go into his room and win him over again. He knew who I was, and he called me by name, and he was happy to see me. And he was always talking with the people around us, like in the room, our neighbor. He was always seeing if it was okay that we're making some more noise, and making jokes with the nurses and things like this. And then even at the very end, towards the ICU, when he couldn't do anything, and I was still going in there. Like the last time I saw him, which was just a few days before he passed. I was thinking, like, should I go in there? Should I go into the ICU? I was talking to a nurse. I was being like, do you think it's a good time? Like, it's kind of weird. It's kind of always what I'm thinking about my job. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it because his family said that he likes the company. I know he likes music. I'm just going to do it. And so he woke up, half a song in, and he's like, oh, Quinton, with a smile. And he's like, how long have you been here? I'm like, I've just been here for half a song, man. I'm like, I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
stick around and play you some softies for you to fall asleep to.
What a story, right? That one just left me sort of just imagining that. And then to gain all of those things, and the fact even that Justice Sinclair right down to the end was giving people advice and talking about identity and connection, and like, wow.
Yeah, I love it how they just, connected over music, but then just kind of snowballed into so much more, right?
Yeah, music's such a healing thing though.
I agree with you because when I have my downtime, yeah, I do have that moments where I feel like I don't know what's going on, and I switch to my kind of music. A lot of people would go, "What is your kind of music?"
Okay, I want to know because you heard Justice Sinclair in this interview likes old time country, and I thought of you because you're a country guy, but you also
But I didn't go country. I used to go like to the 1920s. I do more of like swing music.
really, I love that.
Those just makes me like calm down, and I just like refocus.
We're gonna leave it there. This is Manitoba. Thanks everybody.